so much for listening to Uplifting Impact. I have a special opportunity for you. For everybody who is a listener, we are going to be hosting a wonderful How to Be an Ally Summit. It is a virtual summit. And for those of you who are our listeners, we know that you're already on your allyship journey. But if you're ready to go deeper, to learn more, to put some more tools into your toolbox, we'd love to have you join us. The summit is going to be hosted February 1st through the 3rd, 2021. So go ahead, get your ticket, and make sure that you get a ticket not just for yourself, but get a ticket for somebody in your family. Get a ticket for the people that are on your team. Let's go ahead and figure out how we can move further, faster, and together. Hello and welcome to Uplifting Impact. Today I am here with a longtime friend, Grady Crosby. Grady is a dynamic senior executive leader and corporate officer for Johnson Controls. He is directly responsible for driving Johnson Controls' global strategies regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, sustainability, government relations, and its philanthropic endeavors. In order to enhance and really look at what could happen in the business objectives and maintain the company's commitment to improvement, he takes all of his talents and pushes it in that direction. In his current role right now, what Grady is doing is he is leading a matrixed public affairs group that drives Johnson Controls' ESG strategies. And under his leadership, it has been noticed by a number of different really respectable companies. So Johnson Controls was honored to be called one of the world's most ethical companies under his leadership between 2014 and 2020, and to be ranked number 18 on the 2020 list of the 100 best corporate citizens by CR Magazine. Those, if you don't know this world and you don't know those rankings, those are very hard things to achieve. And Grady has been able to do it over and over again because he is really committed to this work and he knows how to bring the right people alongside him. So we are delighted to have you on the show with us today, Grady. Welcome.
Deanna, I am uber thrilled to be here with the infamous Deanna Singh. So I'm honored that you asked me to be here, and I'm just looking forward to it. So good deal.
Thank you. So one of the things that I most appreciate about you, Grady, and what I've seen you do over and over again is that you have often, and I've been watching, right? Like I've played witness to this, but you oftentimes will be in situations where because of the amazing leadership roles that you have and the prominence of your role and kind of the spaces that you occupy, you'll often be given a microphone. And when you get that microphone, one of the things that I see you do over and over again is bring up these issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I see you bring up the things that are challenging us, the things that make it really hard to do. And so I first wanted to acknowledge that, like, I'm watching you. I see how you roll. I see what you're doing with that microphone. But I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. Like, why is that something that you do? How do you get up the courage to do that and use your platform and your microphone to bring those topics to the forefront?
Wow, Deanna, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you making that observation. But, leaders like you are doing the same thing. And so I'm so appreciative that you're creating forums like this for these types of messages to get out. When we talk about reducing and eliminating barriers for certain groups, you are the epitome of that. And so I'm just grateful for people like you. So, and probably, some of the reasons I do it are probably some of the things that drive you. And a lot of it is, my background. And I'm definitely a, prime example of someone who, if you give someone a chance, you just never know what type of potential you can potentially unleash. And so I know there's potential all around us. And I know some of it is getting buried, some of it is getting overlooked. And so I need to make sure that people are aware that there are jewels of talent everywhere. But in order to find them, we have to open our eyes. We have to look. We have to look at some non-traditional places and spaces and be willing sometimes to even take some chances on people. But that's a great thing when you take a chance on a person it can actually change the trajectory of their life and the lives of people within their lineage for generations to come. And when you talk about uplifting impact, to me, that's what it's all about. So yeah, I get a little enthusiastic when I get the opportunity to talk to people about what I do.
So I love what you just said about finding gems, right? And that everybody has a great deal of potential. But sometimes we have systems in place that don't allow for that potential to really be excavated. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, right? Where it's like we're not used to it. We're not used to digging in a certain area. We're not used to bringing up talent in a certain kind of space or with a certain kind of group of people. But you've been really effective at changing those norms. Can you just talk a little bit about what you've done to create different channels and different pipelines to bring in more diversity into your work?
Well, we just got to be very focused and intentional about what we're trying to accomplish. And so at Johnson Controls, we have a lot of engineering talent because we are creating some very eloquent solutions to solve some of the world's most challenging issues around buildings and environments and things of that nature. But for instance, somebody says, well, we need some more Black engineers. Well, guess what? It just so happens when you look at the HBCUs are graduating 80% of the world's Black engineers. So you need some Black engineers? Let's go see some HBCUs to find them. And not disparaging, any other universities or what have you, but I'm just talking about, being able to kind of go to a source. So we've been trying to do some intentional things around partnerships with HBCUs, and even with regard to the way that our people think about talent. Again, and it's natural. People want to be in their comfort zone. And we understand that. So how do we equip people to think about talent in a different way, to think about talent in terms of that they have a responsibility for growing and building that talent? And probably one of the most rewarding things that I get a chance to do in my role is to try to really usher in and create bridges for a new generation of diverse talent. Ethnic talent, female talent, exposing people, even going down to the high school levels and even below, but exposing kids to careers that they never may have even thought about were opportunities to raise families upon, to build dreams upon, what have you. And so, getting our people to think differently about talent and getting our people to really go to where talent is, to meet the talent where they're at, is probably one of the things that, we really try to focus and concentrate on. I can't say that we've been, uber successful because I want to do more. But we keep our hand to the plow to keep trying to getting it done every day.
And that's something that's so fascinating to me because a lot of times people will ask me, I just got off a call actually, where somebody was asking, well, what can we do? We're this big company. What can we really do when we're talking about diverse pipelines? And that is one thing that I think Johnson Controls has consistently done. I mean, a lot of the work that you and I have done together has been around community engagement and really around youth engagement. And so one of the things that I appreciate, and I've seen this under your leadership, and I know a number of people within the organization support this idea of, let's help create those pipelines. Let's not be afraid of going past the universities and going into our high schools and talking to our middle schools and talking to our teachers and really giving, like you said, this eyesight into what could be and what is possible. So as you see that, and that you've made investments and you've made significant investments in really creating those opportunities and for children to kind of start thinking about different career paths and different, what would have been some of the, I guess, return on investment, right? Like if there's a company out there like, I don't know, that seems like it's a little bit too much. What would you say to that company to get them on board?
Yeah, the main thing is to just be committed to transforming your workplace, because it's not going to happen overnight. It's not a poison pill out there to make it happen instantaneously. But, you can see progress when you start to at least put some lenses around what you're doing and do some monitoring. We always talk about the fact that, what gets measured gets done. but what gets done gets improved,
Mm.
and what gets improved gets replicated, and what gets replicated can potentially transform the entire market. And so we don't see ourselves as subject matter experts at this at Johnson Controls. We are really trying to replicate and scale up things that are working. And so, I look to our friends in the community like John Daniels, who, had the great honor of and privilege of starting the MKE Fellows program with a number of other community leaders. But, it was great when we not only supported Milwaukee Fellows, but then to see Milwaukee Fellow graduates become employees of Johnson Controls. And so, just the small victories like that have been very rewarding. These kids leave Milwaukee, go out and get an education. And then, we always talk about this pipeline. Well, we know the pipeline has some leaks in it because, the talent that's coming out of Milwaukee is not returning. But here are some people. A guy named Nick Young is the guy I'm talking about in particular, who's a Milwaukee Fellow, comes back and is working with Johnson Controls now. So it's an arduous process, and I would tell my fellow corporate citizens that we don't do it to beat ourselves across the chest. We really do it to inspire others to join with us in this work. And together, if we do our own part, we can change some of this talk about Milwaukee being a talent drain and we're not producing the talent that we need to have in the city and we're not keeping the talent. We can change that narrative if we just stay at it.
Yeah. And so there's people who are not just from Milwaukee. So let me just explain the MKE Fellows program because it's a fantastic program.
Sure.
So a couple of community leaders, including Grady, decided that we were going to support men of color who were leaving, in particular African-American men who were in universities all over the country. I think maybe all over the world. I feel like we might have a few international students. And the idea was, let's make sure that when they have their summer vacations, that they have a place to come back to. And not only are they coming back home and getting some little job, but we're giving them internships and we're giving them training and coaching and mentorship and connecting them with people. I'm very proud to say that a couple of the Milwaukee Fellows who were considered the Milwaukee Fellow, who won the Master Award for the summers, were my fellows. I love that program and have been a huge proponent of it since the very beginning. And what we have seen is that those young men, not only do they do really well in school and we're already, doing great things, but that now they want to come back home and they want to bring those talents. So if you're in a city that's experiencing the same idea, we call it brain drain here in Milwaukee. So if you're experiencing something like that and you're seeing it in your newspapers and you're not, getting a lot of your people of color and your men or whoever it is, whatever groups, that you're missing in your workforce, think about replicating a project like that because it really just took the commitment. It wasn't some big organization. It was the commitment of a couple of great leaders in our community who brought together their resources and decided they were going to put them behind these young men. And they have a time and time again just proven just how amazing they are and how lucky we are that they're in our community. So just in case people don't know that program, I just want to give them a huge shout out.
Well, I'm glad you said that. In fact, the United Way is replicating that program on a national basis. I believe it's called Young Men United. So even in local communities around the country, that program will be available.
That's so amazing. And it starts with somebody having the fortitude to say, this is a good idea. This is something that I care about. In my sphere of influence, this is what I can do. Because at first it was just a few young men and now it's like over 100, right? And so taking that and showing that, and like you said, doing it, right? Repeating it, replicating it. I can't remember all the wonderful steps you had along the way, but that's what you do, right? Because you can improve on it, you can replicate it, and then other people want to replicate it. That's how change happens. Right.
That's true transformation. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. So we talked about it on the local level, but I know that you have global all over your title, right? And in all the work that you're doing, you're spending, right now we see a beautiful picture of you, in the universe. So you are out there on a global stage. And I guess one of the big questions that I have for you is, as a company that is, looking at things from a global perspective and with a global lens, how does this diversity, equity, and inclusion work play into it? Why is it still important from a global perspective?
Yeah, at the end of the day, people still want to feel that they have a voice. They want to feel included, and they care about the things that you would think most people care about. They care about, safety. They care about their families. They care about opportunities for the future and their future success. And so when you kind of gather around those, common postulates that people around the world, no matter where they are, kind of have in common, and create some spaces where people can talk freely and openly about that. So D&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, looks very different in China than it does in Mexico City, that it does in Hanover, Germany, or the UAE. But our responsibility is to make sure that for our people that we have leaders in place who can understand those nuances in those areas and be able to create platforms where people can openly talk about those different perspectives. In fact, this year during COVID, we have a dynamic new D&I leader who you just have to meet very soon here. Her name is Denise Malloy. She's our VP of Diversity and Inclusion. And so she started these perspective sessions where our employees are getting together on a Microsoft Teams global stages, if you will, to really talk about their perspectives from the standpoint of what's it like in 2020 in the pandemic, being a father, especially the father of, a Black or brown kid. What's it like being a young professional mother and trying to, balance the demands of Zoom, Teams, all these meetings every day, right? And trying to, keep your family together and kids educated and homeschooled or what have you. We used to talk about work-life balance. Now it's more of a work-life integration. But what's that? What are those types of feelings that people are having? And from that, how can we help improve? How can we help get those issues on the table so that leaders and not just leaders, but everybody can work on how we create a more conducive environment for people to thrive in and be more productive. And so sometimes we say all the time that perceptions are greater than reality, but people need to have their perceptions heard. And so that's another thing that I really value about the role that I'm in, is allowing people to just have a voice. I mean, sometimes you may not solve anything, but just allowing somebody to vent and let you know how tough it is, and how many barriers I have to, try to overcome, and just letting people vent in a format where other people can hear and relate to it is therapeutic. And so we've allowed that to happen at Johnson Controls in a very safe space. And we think that it really helps with regard to productivity, loyalty, and engagement.
Absolutely. And, I think that's interesting, like this point that no matter where you are in the world, right, and no matter how you are experiencing things, everybody has some of these shared needs. We have the need to feel connected. We have the need to feel included. We have the need to feel like our voice matters. We have the need to feel like, we can share who we are and not just what we do, right? That there's something more to who we are as human beings. And so I really appreciate it. And Grady, I started this conversation by talking about how you are so good at making sure that you use your microphone to elevate other people, and that you give people the opportunity to create that space. And you just proved it. You just proved my point.
Good deal.
So I just want to say thank you again for all that you're doing, for all Johnson Controls is doing here locally, but also on the global stage, for really leading the charge and creating so many great examples about how we can do this work and really bring people along as we do the work, and create more spaces, more entry points for people to come into this work, and really into the opportunity to thrive from an economic standpoint. Because at the end of the day, there's lots of different ways that we need to thrive. And one of them is economic, and one of them is tied to jobs, and one of them is tied to that stability. One of them is tied to being, at great companies that can provide those supports that they need. And so the more we can do that, the more companies we have that are showing that, it's really awesome. So thank you.
No, I thank you. Johnson Controls definitely benefits by having its North American headquarters in Milwaukee, where we have people like you that are continuing to make sure these conversations are going on and people are heard. We're at a very unique time in our world history. And, you know, I feel privileged to be living now because I don't think anyone has ever seen anything like this before. And you and I have this unique opportunity to advance some of these issues with regard to social justice, racial equity, making people more included and equitable, and trying to level the playing field in some of these work environments. We have the opportunity of a lifetime right now, and it's great to have people like you that we can link arms and continue to keep this work going.
Well, thank you. And I think everybody listening, I hope you heard that too. We need to link arms with you also, because we know that if this work doesn't get done just by one person, we know it doesn't get done with just one company, it doesn't get done with just one program, one initiative. It really is our collective power. So Grady, if people want to follow you, and you should, because he's always doing something awesome, what's the best way to do that?
I'm not really a social media mogul, if you will, but but definitely appreciate people reaching out to me on LinkedIn. It's just Grady Crosby. That's how you can find me on LinkedIn. If you're on Instagram, it's Grady Crosby. That's how you can find me on Twitter. It's a little different. It's HU Grady, in deference to that great historically Black college and university located in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., Howard University. So it's actually HU Grady on Twitter.
Fantastic. So we'll make sure that all of those are in the show notes. So again, thank you to Grady. Thank you to everybody who was listening here today at Uplifting Impact. We truly, truly believe that if you're in your local community, if you're in your global community, it doesn't matter, that all of those spaces really do require us thinking about this idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the more we can do it, the more we can, as Grady said, link arms and walk together to try and create these spaces, the more inclusive we can become, the better we are as a country, the better we are as a people, the better we are as a world. So thank you for joining us on Uplifting Impact. We do hope that you'll tell a friend, you'll tell your coworkers, that you'll have other people join us for our future conversations. We can't wait to be with you again. Thank you so much.